Have you ever looked in the mirror, run your fingers through your hair, and quietly wondered, when did it start thinning this much? Not all at once, not in one dramatic moment, but little by little. More hair in the brush, more scalp showing under bright light, a wider part, a thinner crown, and for many seniors, that can feel deeply personal because hair is not just hair. Hair is a signal, it's a biological clue. It's one of the earliest visible reflections of what is happening inside your body. And here's what most people get wrong. They assume hair loss is just about age. They assume it's purely genetic. They assume once you're older, thinning hair is simply something you have to accept. But that is not the full story, because here's what's really going on inside your body. Hair follicles are among the most metabolically active tissues you have. That means they are extremely sensitive to changes in circulation, inflammation, hormones, nutrient delivery, stress chemistry, and sleep quality. If your scalp is not receiving the right biochemical signals, your follicles do not thrive. They miniaturize, they shorten their growth phase, they shed sooner, and over time, the hair becomes finer, weaker, and slower to regrow. So when seniors begin losing hair, the real issue is often not the strand you can see. The real issue is the environment surrounding the follicle. Think of a hair follicle like a tiny garden bulb planted in the soil of your scalp. If the soil is inflamed, the water supply is weak, the hormones are disruptive, and the nutrients are low, the bulb doesn't die overnight, it just stops flourishing. That is why shampoos alone often fail. That is why cosmetic fixes disappoint. And that is why chasing symptoms without addressing the root cause leads nowhere. Now today, I want to show you a very simple nightly strategy that may help support healthier hair growth naturally, especially for older adults. And the food at the center of this conversation is something surprisingly simple. 1 spoon of pumpkin seed oil before bed, or in some cases, freshly ground pumpkin seeds used strategically. Now let me be very clear. This is not magic. This is not an overnight cure, and it is not a substitute for proper diagnosis if your hair loss is severe, sudden, patchy, or linked to illness. But what the research shows is genuinely interesting. Pumpkin seed oil contains phytosterols, vitamin E compounds, anti-inflammatory fats, and plant compounds that may help influence DHT-related hair follicle miniaturization, one of the major drivers of age-related pattern hair loss. In a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial, men with androgenetic alopecia taking pumpkin seed oil experienced a significantly greater increase in hair count over 24 weeks than placebo. That doesn't mean it works for everyone, but it does mean we have a real signal worth paying attention to. And there's an even deeper reason I like this topic for seniors, because the real value is not just the oil itself. The real value is what this conversation teaches you about how to rebuild the biology of hair growth. Better scalp circulation, lower chronic inflammation, more stable overnight blood sugar, healthier hormone signaling, stronger micronutrient status, and better sleep-driven repair. That is where true hair recovery begins. So in today's video, I'm not just going to tell you what to eat before bed. I'm going to show you why hair follicles age faster in some people than others, why nighttime is a powerful metabolic repair window, how a single spoon of the right food can support the scalp environment, which nutrient deficiencies silently sabotage regrowth in seniors, and what simple daily habits can dramatically improve your odds of thicker, healthier hair over time. And if you've been frustrated because you've tried hair vitamins, oils, or expensive products and still haven't seen real change, stay with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why the missing piece may not be the product on your scalp. It may be the chemistry in your bloodstream. And if this kind of practical, science-based health content is helpful to you, consider subscribing. Because every day I break down complex health topics into simple tools you can actually use. Now let's quickly map out the 6 most important things you need to understand. Let's start with the biggest myth in this entire conversation. Most seniors are told that thinning hair is simply part of getting older. And yes, age plays a role. But that explanation is incomplete because hair loss is very often not just an age issue, it's a signal issue. It's your body telling you that the environment around your hair follicles has changed. Here's what's really going on inside your body. A healthy hair follicle lives in cycles. It grows, it rests, it sheds, and then it grows again. That growth phase is called anagen. The longer your follicles stay in anagen, the fuller and thicker your hair tends to be. But as we age, many people don't just lose hair. What actually happens is that the growth phase shortens. That means the follicle doesn't get enough time to build a strong, thick strand before it shifts into rest or shedding. So the hair becomes finer, shorter, weaker, and more sparse over time. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your hair follicles are like tiny factories. When the factory has steady electricity, quality raw materials, clean air, and reliable workers, production runs beautifully. But what if the power supply becomes unstable? What if the delivery trucks stop arriving on time? What if the building is inflamed and overheated? Production slows down. That's exactly what happens to aging follicles. And the power supply for your follicles is metabolic health. If your blood sugar is unstable, if your inflammation is elevated, if your circulation is sluggish, if your stress hormones stay high, if your nutrient reserves are low, your follicles get the message. This is not a safe environment for aggressive growth, so they downshift. This is why some seniors at 75 still have surprisingly strong, thick hair, while others begin noticeable thinning in their 50s or 60s. Chronological age matters, but biological environment matters more. And one of the biggest hidden drivers is insulin resistance. When insulin stays elevated over time, it can amplify inflammatory pathways, worsen vascular health, and distort hormone signaling. That matters because hair follicles are extremely sensitive to both microcirculation and androgen activity. When that internal terrain becomes hostile, the follicle gradually miniaturizes. Then there's chronic low-grade inflammation, the kind many seniors don't feel directly. You may not notice it day to day, but your follicles do. Inflammation increases oxidative stress, disrupts the dermal papilla, that's the control center at the base of the follicle, and can interfere with normal cycling. This is one reason pattern hair loss is not just cosmetic. It's a reflection of how your tissues are responding to stress, hormones, and nutrient signaling over time. And then we have nutrient depletion, which becomes more common with age. As we get older, stomach acid often drops, protein digestion can weaken, appetite changes, medications can interfere with absorption. And suddenly, even if someone is eating enough, they may still be undersupplied in the exact nutrients hair follicles depend on. A 2024 systematic review on androgenetic alopecia found that deficiencies or imbalances in micronutrients, especially vitamin B, vitamin D, iron, selenium, and zinc, may contribute meaningfully to hair loss and may represent modifiable risk factors. That's powerful because it means hair loss is not always a dead end. Sometimes it's a message that your follicles are underfed, overinflamed, hormonally stressed, or metabolically undersupported. And once you understand that, the goal changes. You stop asking, what product do I put on my scalp? And you start asking, what does my follicle need from the inside to feel safe enough to grow again? That is the right question. And if this is helping you see hair loss in a completely different way, consider subscribing, because I post science-based health videos like this every day, focused on solving the root cause, not just covering up symptoms. Now let's talk about the star of this video. What is this 1 spoon before bed that has so many people curious? It's pumpkin seed oil. And if you prefer whole food nutrition, a second option is freshly ground pumpkin seeds. But for a more concentrated nightly ritual, pumpkin seed oil is the most practical form. Now, before we go any further, I want to be precise. This is not a miracle cure. It is not guaranteed to regrow hair for everyone. And it is not a replacement for medical care if you have sudden hair loss, patchy bald spots, scalp disease, thyroid problems, or medication-related shedding. But what the research shows is genuinely interesting. In a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled trial published in 2014, men with androgenetic alopecia who took 400 milligrams of pumpkin seed oil daily for 24 weeks experienced a significantly greater increase in hair count than the placebo group. In fact, the study reported roughly a 40% increase in mean hair count in the pumpkin seed oil group compared with a much smaller increase in placebo. That's not hype. That's a clinically meaningful signal, even though it's one study and not the final word. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. So what might be happening? Here's what's really going on inside your body. One of the major drivers of age-related pattern hair thinning is DHT, or dihydrotestosterone. DHT is a hormone made when the enzyme 5-alpha reductase converts testosterone into a more potent androgen form. Now, DHT is not bad. Your body makes it for a reason, but in genetically susceptible hair follicles, especially around the temples and crown, too much DHT signaling can gradually miniaturize the follicle. That means each new hair grows thinner, the growth cycle gets shorter, shedding becomes more visible, and eventually the follicle struggles to produce robust hair. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine your hair follicle is like a tree. DHT doesn't chop the tree down overnight. Instead, it slowly tightens the soil around the roots, reduces the nutrients getting in, and makes each new season of growth weaker than the last. That's why pattern hair loss is gradual. And pumpkin seed oil may matter because it contains phytosterols, plant compounds that researchers believe may help modulate the activity of 5-alpha reductase, the very enzyme involved in DHT production. In simple terms, it may help soften the hormonal pressure being placed on vulnerable follicles. But that's not the only reason it's interesting. Pumpkin seed oil also delivers healthy unsaturated fats, which support cell membranes and skin barrier health, vitamin E compounds, which help protect tissues from oxidative stress, anti-inflammatory plant compounds, which may improve the scalp environment, and naturally occurring minerals found in the seed matrix, especially when paired with whole pumpkin seeds in the diet. So the benefit is likely not coming from just one mechanism. It may be a multi-layered effect, less inflammatory stress, better membrane integrity, possible DHT modulation, and improved nutrient support for the follicle environment. Now, why do I like the idea of taking it before bed? Not because bedtime is magic, but because bedtime is when your body shifts into repair mode. During sleep, your body is not focused on digestion the way it is during the day. It is focused on cellular cleanup, hormone recalibration, tissue repair, and recovery signaling. A small, consistent nightly ritual also improves compliance. And compliance matters more than intensity because hair biology is slow. You do not measure success in 3 days. You measure it in 12 weeks, 16 weeks, 24 weeks. That's how real follicle change happens. So here's the practical protocol. Simple nightly hair support protocol. Take 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon of cold-pressed pumpkin seed oil in the evening, ideally 30-60 minutes before bed. Start small if digestion is sensitive. Choose cold-pressed, unrefined pumpkin seed oil. Be consistent for at least 8 to 12 weeks, ideally longer. Pair it with a protein-rich dinner and stable blood sugar habits. That last point is critical because no oil can outwork a body that is inflamed, undernourished, sleep-deprived, and metabolically unstable. Now here's where this conversation becomes much more powerful because the real secret is not just what you take before bed, it's why bedtime matters at all. Most people think hair growth happens randomly, but hair follicles are not isolated. They are connected to your circadian rhythm, your stress hormones, your blood sugar patterns, and your sleep-driven repair biology. In other words, your follicles don't just respond to nutrients, they respond to timing. Here's what's really going on inside your body. At night, when your body enters deeper stages of sleep, it shifts away from daytime survival mode and into repair mode. This is when tissue recovery increases, inflammatory signals can quiet down, growth and repair pathways become more active, and your body does some of its most important restoration work. That matters for hair because the follicle is a high-demand structure. It needs steady energy, calm hormone signaling, low oxidative stress, and adequate nutrient delivery. If your nights are metabolically chaotic, your follicles pay the price. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Think of daytime as when a city is busy. Traffic everywhere, deliveries moving, noise, stress, constant demand. Nighttime is when the repair crews come out. They fix the roads, they restore the power grid, they clean the system, they prepare everything for the next day. If those repair crews are interrupted every night, the city slowly deteriorates. That's what happens in your body when cortisol stays elevated too late, blood sugar spikes at night, sleep is fragmented, or inflammation remains high. And this is especially important for seniors because with age, many people develop lighter sleep, more nighttime waking, more blood sugar instability, and more evening cortisol dysregulation. All of that creates a less favorable environment for hair recovery. Now let's talk about cortisol. Cortisol is your primary stress hormone. It's useful in the morning. You want it higher when you wake up. But if cortisol remains elevated at night, from stress, late caffeine, late night snacking, alcohol, poor sleep, or blood sugar swings, it can interfere with the restorative signals your follicles depend on. High nighttime cortisol can reduce sleep quality, worsen inflammation, impair insulin sensitivity, and push the body away from repair. That's bad news for hair. Then there's melatonin. Most people think of melatonin as just a sleep hormone, but melatonin also acts as a powerful antioxidant and may play a protective role in tissues under oxidative stress. Hair follicles are highly sensitive to oxidative damage, which means poor sleep is not just making you tired, it may be weakening the very environment where hair grows. And then there's overnight blood sugar. This is a huge hidden factor. If you eat a high sugar dessert, refined carbs, or snack late into the evening, you can create insulin spikes, blood sugar swings, reactive nighttime stress signals, and fragmented sleep. That means your body spends the night managing metabolic chaos instead of focusing on restoration. So if you want better hair biology, bedtime needs to become a healing window, not a damage window. Here's the practical nightly framework I recommend. Nighttime hair, recovery routine, finish dinner at least 2 to 3 hours before bed. Avoid sugar-heavy desserts and refined carbs late at night. If using pumpkin seed oil, take 1 teaspoon to 1 tablespoon 30-60 minutes before sleep. Keep the bedroom cool and dark. Avoid caffeine late in the day. Prioritize 7 or 8 hours of sleep, even if you need to improve it gradually. If you wake often, assess hydration, nighttime urination, stress, and evening food timing. Now, this is where many people get frustrated. They try oils, they try shampoos, they try biotin gummies, they even try expensive hair growth products. And still, the hair stays thin. Why? Because they're trying to grow hair without supplying the raw materials required to build it. Here's what's really going on inside your body. Hair is not just decoration. Hair is protein-based tissue. That means every strand you grow requires amino acids, minerals, vitamins, energy, oxygen, and healthy cellular signaling. If any of those are missing, your body does something very intelligent. It prioritizes survival over appearance. In other words, if your body has limited nutritional resources, it will send those resources to your brain, heart, liver, immune system, and muscles before it sends them to your hair follicles. Hair is biologically non-essential, so when nutrients are low, hair often becomes one of the first visible places where your body quietly cuts back. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine you're building a house. You can have the best contractor in the world. You can have perfect blueprints. You can even have excellent weather. But if the truck never delivers enough bricks, steel, wiring, and wood, the house doesn't get built. That's what happens with hair regrowth. You can use pumpkin seed oil, you can improve sleep, you can reduce inflammation, but if the building materials are missing, the follicle still struggles. So let's talk about the 5 most overlooked deficiencies in seniors. 1. Protein. This is the most underestimated factor. Hair is made primarily of keratin, a structural protein. If seniors eat too little protein, which is extremely common due to reduced appetite, chewing issues, digestive changes, or fear of eating too much, the body simply doesn't have enough amino acid reserve for strong hair production. Practical target: aim for a protein-rich dinner with eggs, fish, Greek yogurt, cottage cheese, lentils, or high-quality poultry. 2. Low iron is a classic cause of hair shedding, especially diffuse thinning. Even when someone is not frankly anemic, low ferritin, your stored iron, may affect follicle performance. This is especially important if a senior has fatigue, cold hands, brittle nails, or chronic shedding. 3. Zinc is essential for follicle repair, protein synthesis, immune balance, and tissue turnover. Low zinc can contribute to poor hair quality, increased shedding, and slow regrowth. 4. Vitamin D. Vitamin D receptors are involved in follicle cycling. Low vitamin D has been repeatedly associated with different forms of hair loss, including pattern thinning and telogen shedding. 5. B vitamins, especially B12 and folate. These are critical for cellular energy, red blood cell production, oxygen delivery, and tissue regeneration. And here's the issue. Seniors are at higher risk because stomach acid and intrinsic factor often decline with age, which can reduce B12 absorption. A 2024 systematic review found that micronutrient abnormalities involving vitamin B, vitamin D, iron, selenium, and zinc may play a meaningful role in androgenetic alopecia and may represent modifiable contributors. PubMed.ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. That's important because it means if you're trying to regrow hair without checking nutrient status, you may be working hard while missing the actual bottleneck. So here's the practical move. Ask your doctor about these labs if thinning is significant. CBC ferritin iron studies vitamin D, B12, folate, zinc, thyroid panel if symptoms fit. Now let's talk about one of the most overlooked reasons seniors lose hair. Even when they're eating better, taking supplements, and trying all the right products, blood flow, or more specifically, microcirculation, because your hair follicles are tiny structures with very high demands. They need a constant delivery of oxygen, amino acids, minerals, hormones, and repair signals. And the only way those ingredients arrive is through circulation. Here's what's really going on inside your body. At the base of every healthy hair follicle is a specialized area called the dermal papilla. Think of this as the follicle's command center. It helps regulate the hair cycle, the growth phase, and the signals that tell the follicle whether to stay active or start shrinking. But the dermal papilla cannot function well in isolation. It depends on an adequate blood supply. If circulation is sluggish, the follicle may still be alive, but it becomes underfed. And underfed follicles do not produce strong hair. Let me explain this with a simple analogy. Imagine trying to grow a beautiful garden with a weak hose. You may have good seeds, you may have healthy soil, you may even use the right fertilizer, but if the water pressure is poor, the garden never fully thrives. That's what poor scalp circulation does. The follicle may have potential, but the delivery system is compromised. And this becomes more common with age. Why? Because seniors often experience reduced vascular flexibility, higher inflammation, more insulin resistance, more oxidative stress, and less movement overall. All of these factors can impair microvascular function. So even if your lab numbers are normal, your tissues may still be receiving less efficient nutrient delivery at the micro level. That includes the scalp. And this is one reason hair can thin gradually even when someone feels mostly fine. Now, let's connect this back to metabolism. If insulin is chronically elevated, vascular function can suffer. If inflammation is high, the inner lining of blood vessels, the endothelium, doesn't perform as well. If nitric oxide signaling is impaired, vessels don't relax and open as effectively. That matters because the follicle lives downstream from all of that. So when I say hair loss can be a metabolic signal, this is exactly what I mean. The scalp is not separate from the rest of the body. It is a mirror. Now here's the encouraging part. Microcirculation is something you can improve, and you don't need anything extreme. Here's a simple, practical scalp blood flow support protocol for seniors. 1. Daily scalp massage. Use fingertips, not nails. Massage for 3 to 5 minutes daily. Focus on gentle circular pressure across the crown, temples, and thinning areas. This does not force hair growth, but it may improve local blood flow and reduce tension in the scalp. 2. Move after meals. A simple 10-minute walk after dinner can help stabilize blood sugar, improve insulin sensitivity, support vascular health, and reduce nighttime metabolic stress. That one habit can help both your hair and your sleep. 3. Prioritize nitric oxide-friendly foods. Support vascular function with leafy greens, beets, arugula, pomegranate, walnuts, olive oil, and omega-3 rich fish. These foods help support endothelial health and circulation. 4. Avoid the circulation killers. Hair-unfriendly habits include smoking, chronic sleep deprivation, prolonged inactivity, excessive sugar, and unmanaged stress. These quietly constrict the environment your follicles need, and this is where pumpkin seed oil fits in beautifully. because while it may help with hormonal pressure through phytosterols, it also contributes healthy fats and antioxidant compounds that support tissue health more broadly. In other words, it's not just about blocking something bad, it's about improving the terrain. And that's the real theme of this entire video. Healthy hair does not come from attacking the symptom. It comes from rebuilding the environment. In the next section, I'm going to show you the most important part of all, how to combine everything we've discussed into a simple 3-part nightly protocol that gives seniors the best chance of seeing stronger, healthier hair over time.